Hey guys, welcome to today's event. My name is Ricken and I'm the lead digital strategist at Scholarship Track. So today's event, we have Raynier. Raynier works at Deloitte and he works as a business analyst. So in this video, Raynier will be answering a lot of questions that you guys have. He'll be telling his experience and his journey at Deloitte and where he did before and what kind of credentials he had to get to this company. So let's hear it from Raynier. So let me ask you a question, Raynier, a couple of questions, and then we're going to follow along with the live Q&A. So let's start. So Radier, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, what you did before, what college did you go to, and stuff like that?
Sure thing, and hi, it's nice to meet everyone virtually. So, like Rinkin said, my name is Raynier Matias. I'm from New Jersey, and I went to Rutgers University. A bit about my background is that I majored in history and finance, and I started school strictly as a finance major, and then when I was there, I got internships at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. But I made a transition to work more in consulting space, and that's where I found myself at Deloitte. Now I'm a business analyst. I've been working 1 year, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
That's pretty good. You mentioned that you worked at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. These are some of the really top companies to work at. Yeah, I wish to work there also in the future. So let's get to our next question. All right. So can you tell us more about how you applied? What's your application process like? Who did you network with to reach to Deloitte? Did a campus recruiter come to your school? Maybe a little bit information more about that.
Yeah, so I had a pretty interesting story. When I was going through the recruiting process, I knew I wanted to do consulting, but I didn't really have a direct route of getting there because Deloitte was not a target school at my undergrad for Deloitte consulting. So I had to go find like resources outside of school. There's lots of different diversity programs or programs that are catered towards helping students, connecting students with companies and really cool spaces like consulting. So I got involved with this organization called Jumpstart. They would send out an email indicating companies that are receiving their applications. And so I would submit my resume through Jumpstart. And through this, they would give Deloitte a separate pile of resumes to look through, which is separate from the normal online virtual submission process. And so I submitted my application and I got an interview, right? But between finding out I had an interview and my actual interview date, I spent a lot of time preparing for my consulting interview that involved like case studies and also a lot of time networking. So I believe I had around 45 days between finding out I had the interview and my actual interview date. And I would probably send out maybe 2 or 3 emails a day to Deloitte employees, and I would speak to a lot of people throughout that time. And in that time, I would have like somewhat of a network within the firm and learn about what the firm is doing internally. So I felt very comfortable going into my interview. And so my application experience at Deloitte was really going through a diversity program, doing a lot of case prep, a lot of case studying, and doing a lot of networking.
Oh, that's great. And you mentioned you found this you applied from Jumpstart. So is Jumpstart something like Handshake, or are they a student organization, or are they a job website? What is Jumpstart?
So it's a nationwide organization where they help underrepresented minorities and connect them with companies in 3 industries: investment banking, consulting, and technology. I remember when I applied to Jumpstart, I had the sole interest in going to the investment banking space. But then once I was there and I learned about consulting, I actually decided to pivot my career and go down the consulting route. I just found consulting a lot more dynamic and interesting to me personally. And so it's a great opportunity, great experience. You meet a lot of other students and you connect with a lot of big companies.
Right. No, definitely. That's it's a really great way to network. I personally use Handshake and a couple websites that your school's career center has, but definitely there's so many other resources that many students can reach out for doing applications. So let's head to the next question. So what is your previous experience like? Did you have any internship at Deloitte and then you landed a full-time role, or did you work at any other companies before you joined Deloitte?
So I had a lot of internships. Ever since my first week on campus at undergrad, people were saying you have to get an internship freshman year. That will set you up for like the next step, getting the next company.
Right.
And when you're a freshman, like you would love to work at those big firms, like the Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanleys of the world. But the reality of it is that you probably won't, and you have to start at the bottom. So my first internship was at a garbage company where I was literally counting garbage in their finance department. But that opportunity helped me develop my resume, and not long after, I was able to get an interview with Goldman Sachs, and I was able to get like a part-time internship during my fall semester, and that later turned into a summer internship with Goldman Sachs. And then following that summer, I liked Goldman Sachs, a great company, but I wanted to experience other firms. I was still a sophomore at the time, and I wanted to know what else was out there. So I had an interview with Morgan Stanley, and that led to another summer internship there. And I was able to kind of learn about finance, but within a different company, which it's somewhat similar, but the cultures are very unique. And I think that's a good experience for anybody, because then you get to understand what culture resonates more with you. But following that finance internship at those two banks, I wanted to try something else. So I kind of got involved with the TMT space, and I went down the media entertainment route. I did an internship at Discovery Channel. But following that internship, and it was a great internship, I loved the people, I realized I didn't want to do media and entertainment. I decided, I met a few people that were interning in consulting, and I thought that was a pretty cool job opportunity. So when I was going to my 5th-year school final recruiting season for full-time, I decided to focus my energy into consulting, and that's how I landed at Deloitte. I never did an internship in consulting, but I love it, and I really enjoy it. I have no regrets about going to this space.
Gotcha. Dude, that's really sick. You did a lot of internships. You got in. You said sophomore year, right?
Yeah, you have to start early.
Yeah, I know. Like my sophomore year, the first summer, right? I didn't have an internship, so I was like, all right, what should I do? Like, I just went online and I started to take these courses from Udemy and all these websites out there like Coursera. So I didn't get an internship. It was really hard because I didn't have a lot of work experience. So that's all I did. And then you said that you worked at a garbage company. Was it a startup company or something like that?
No, it was a large company, but it was essentially they recycled waste and turned it into energy. So it was a garbage company.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I worked at a startup. That was actually my first ever internship. I joined in as a market researcher. You could also say a business analyst. I was just an analyst. So I worked with market data research and stuff like that. And that was my first opportunity that I was given by a startup, because for me it was really hard to get to these big companies with not a lot of work experience and a pretty decent GPA. I was about 3.0, but yeah, it was really hard. So yeah, you gained a lot of work experience from really reputed companies out there Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. That's amazing, man. That's awesome. So let's get to the next question.
Just to make a quick comment on what you said, startups are a great place to start, because they're always looking for help. And honestly, just knowing someone or sending someone a simple email, that can lead to your first internship. And once you have your first internship, that can take you to a more reputable company, because you have something to work for. You have work experience to talk about, and people kind of or more willing to give you a chance once they know you've worked before. So if you can't find an internship, maybe just reach out to someone at a startup, because they're more likely to say yes to you, especially if you're willing to work for 5 hours, 10 hours, even if it's unpaid. I think you should do something.
Definitely. That's a pretty valid point. So, my first internship at that startup, right? It was unpaid. I was like, oh, I'm not going to get paid. Should I do it? And it was in New York City. It was right by the Wall Street. So I was like, oh my God, I got to pay that New York rent. I'm not getting paid. What should I do? But I was like, all right, what matters is the experience. And I actually worked with a lot of different people. So that company was not that small. I think there are 200 employees, but they're still pretty new. So they went by startup, but they're not really a startup. But yeah, they were in the payment processing industry. So I learned about POS systems and terminals and actually banking and a whole lot about finance and stuff like that. So I worked in the payments sector. It was really interesting to learn how payments work, and basically most of these businesses use the POS system, how everything works on the back end side. So I work with engineers who maintain and monitor this whole payment system and stuff like that. And I had no idea that I would get this internship, but all I did was I went on Handshake, I just applied, and I actually just got an interview call. So I was like, all right, let's do this, right? Yeah, you just have to kind of have that attitude where you don't want to give up, because I feel like a lot of students today are struggling with probably getting internships, and I feel like startups is probably best way to start your career. Is the best way to get the ball rolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like this is something everybody wants to know. Like, what would be the application advice that you would give to our viewers? How did you do the application and stuff like that? I feel like you did mention some of that, but it'll be great if you repeat.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is definitely an iterative process, and it becomes easier over time. Your application will become stronger over time. But I think the earlier you start, the better, and you're able to develop your resume to include more work experience. Also, when you have your work experience on your resume, make sure to begin the statement, like the bullet points, with what you do and then your impact, and try to quantify it, because that's something that recruiters look at. They look for numbers. There's a lot of words in your resume. They don't really stand out, but if you have a number, like I was able to increase revenue by 10% or reduce time by 5%, that demonstrates that you're either saving someone time, becoming more productive, or saving someone money or making someone money. And those are the four things that any recruiter or any interviewer cares most about. But going through the application process, having a strong resume is key. But I also think networking is a very essential part of recruiting, where if you have someone at the firm that's pulling for you, that makes getting an interview so much easier. And plus, when you do the networking, you're able to learn more about the company in a way that people that are from other people you're competing against for the job, they don't really know as much. And if you're able to demonstrate an interest and knowledge of the firm, that's really impressive to your interviewer. I think those are some really key aspects of the application process that have helped me out when I was going through recruiting. And you have to persevere, because it is a very difficult journey. And I have gone through so many rejections. Like, my resume looks good now in retrospect, but at the time, it was a very difficult journey, and I had to deal with a lot of rejection. But you learn from those experiences, and you have to reflect from those interviews and those rejections, and you have to make improvements based off that. Because if you're getting rejected, chances are there's nothing wrong with the company. It's something you have to change about yourself. And for me, that was probably speaking slower in my interviews, being more articulate, and answering the question that was asked to me. So that would be my advice for just the application process and the interview process.
Gotcha. I think you mentioned a really super important point about the resume. I feel like, a lot of students actually make one mistake on the resume. They don't quantify, like you said, like you increase revenue by 10%, or you help do sales by 30%, you brought in that much revenue to the company. I feel like, yeah, if you mention that in your resume, it makes it really easier for the recruiter to like pretty much know how you benefited the previous organization that you worked at. So I did this sort of like a course online, just like technical writing, sort of like a resume writing course. And I kind of wanted to also be like a resume editor, freelancer. Like, I wanted to be on a track. So when I did that course, I learned so many things, and you mentioned mostly like all those five important things. And yeah, you hit all the check marks. Like, it's awesome. So let's get to our next question.
I need to make a comment on that. Making a resume is a skill, but once you have it, you can just keep doing it, and it becomes so much easier to get that interview and do a good resume.
Yeah, definitely. And like one more thing is, I feel like if you are applying to like a finance company, or then you're applying to like a company that's in a completely different sector, then you should cater or sort of like tailor your resume according to that company. I do that often, because when I apply to so many companies, I learn about the company, I check out what they do, and learn about their background and stuff like that. And then I always make sure to edit my resume so that it fits to what they're looking for. So keep that in practice. Like most of the viewers, I don't know if you guys do it, but do that. Make sure you edit your resume each time. Resume is something that you want to keep on trying to make sure that it looks better, it's up to date. Mention all the latest things that you have done. So yeah, that's super important. All right, so let's get to our next question. So can you tell us more about the interview process at Deloitte? So how many interviews you had to take, and what is it like getting in the interview process?
Yeah. So Deloitte only had one super day for me, and it was they just invited me to the location where my interview was, which is Washington D.C., Arlington, Virginia. And we had like a one day of networking, and then the second day was just the interview itself. And the interview was structured as in like they made you take a personality test, which we call business chemistry, and it kind of tells you what kind of team member you are. Then after that, there was a behavioral interview, which is basically
was it higher view?
no higher view. This is before
Okay.
higher. Now,
Okay.
but like
Yeah.
at the transition point. And then after the behavioral, it's just 2 case interviews. And the case interviews, this is basically like this organization is facing a problem, and you have to talk out loud and try to figure out what the problem is and how you recommend a solution. And that was this interview process for Deloitte. But leading up to the interview, there was a lot of preparation on my end when it came to doing case prep interviews with other people, studying on my own, doing networking, and just practicing my behaviorals.
Right. Gotcha. So, so basically, how many sort of interview rounds did you have? You had the first networking round, and then you went to a behavioral interview. Then you got the higher review, and then you actually had an in-person interview. Am I saying it right?
No, so it was really one super day where I had behaviorals and 2 case interviews.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Got it. Nice. I mean, it sounds like there's not many rounds, but there's a lot of different cases that you have to work with. I like doing that.
I think it might have changed now, and because COVID and how a lot of things are going virtual. But also, I didn't go through like the normal campus recruiting process, which may have been different. I believe that is 2 super days. I went through remember Jumpstart, which was puts me on a different pipeline, and Deloitte has a Blitz Super Day, which is how they recruit some people from like diversity programs like Jumpstart, MLT, and other ones. So my process was unique, and I think other people have different processes depending on how they come into Deloitte, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah, no, I had a higher review interview recently. It was with Bakery Hughes. So Bakery Hughes is a GE company. So yeah, I think right now since everything is virtual, so I didn't have any interaction with the recruiter. All I did was get an email, and they're like, "You got to hop onto this higher review interview." So I took it. I don't know what happened because I haven't heard back. But yeah, like you said, COVID definitely plays a lot of major role in this. I feel like every company takes a different approach to interview process. Yeah.
And if you do a higher review, just make sure to practice. I think there's a lot of online that like let you practice with, higher.
You won't believe I actually took 2 really good days. I was like, yo, I gotta practice. I gotta make sure that I'm spot on. I don't mess up because it's in front of like camera, and you definitely get a little bit nervous. But what I did is do 6 to 7 practice interviews. I made notes. I made a Google Doc where I mentioned like key points of what I'm gonna say and stuff like that. So that actually helped me a lot. So to our viewers, like if you have a higher review interview, then always make sure to like take a day or 2 to practice because it's not something that you might want to do like right off the bat. So next question, this is more about your role. So, as a business analyst, what are some of the responsibilities that you have? Do you have like a more technical role or a functional role?
It depends. Because every day is different and every project I'm on is different. I guess my first 3 projects were very technical, where I did a lot of Excel work, a lot of Tableau work, and I learned a lot on the job. I knew Excel going in, didn't know any Tableau, but I was able to develop on those skills with time. My current role is a lot more functional, where I'm facilitating interviews for my current client. So it really depends. And one thing that I do like about Deloitte is that you have to be comfortable working in like white space, and by that I mean ambiguity, and by that I mean like not having a lot of direction when you're given a responsibility. And so it gives you space to be creative and kind of think freely and be able to be innovative with a very short amount of time to like create something new. In terms of responsibilities for my role, I think you have to definitely be comfortable working with ambiguity. You have to have like a bias towards action, as in like, you might not have direction, but you should be taking steps forward. And really just being a supportive team member, because like, you have a client to impress or, do work for. So it's very important that you're always willing to support the people on your team to be able to complete their tasks on time.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's super important. So, I also work as a business analyst right now. Definitely, we work with so many different organizations inside the company. You work with the tech department, you work with the DevOps, you work with the sales, pre-sales, solutions consultants, UI, UX designers. There's so many, different departments you got to work with. So yeah, it's definitely important. And I feel like one of the most important thing for like a business analyst also have is to have like great communication skills, because like my role is pretty much client based, so I cater to like what client wants. I interact with startup company owners, give them the best solutions to make a web application or a mobile application, and we suggest them like what they should, what kind of programming language they can use to make this application, and then I document stuff like that. And so I make different documentations, and I work with the programmer. I give them a step by step, basically a step-by-step approach, like, okay, now we got to do this. This is the next feature that the client wants, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's that, like you said, our role is pretty much, technical plus functional. So it's pretty much an amalgam of both. Yeah, that's pretty essential as a business analyst.
Yeah, and I think a business analyst is kind of like an umbrella term where
Definitely.
there's a lot of people that are called business analysts, but everyone does something different. Like someone might be functional, someone might do technical, and someone might just do both. Like,
exactly.
I think it really depends who you talk to.
Yeah, no, when I go like, online and search for business analyst, and I'll see like so many different things, which is like I'll see IT business analyst, I'll see management business analyst. I feel like business analyst is something that if you're a business major, you could do that. If you're an IT major, you could do that. If you're an economics major, you could do that. If you're a
Yeah.
finance major, you could. So I feel like all the majors in the end could actually work as an analyst, because it's a pretty broad term, and there's a lot of different subcategories in this whole job, like business analyst. It's pretty broad. Yeah.
And I've met a lot of people in my company that have like history backgrounds and people that have like very low stats backgrounds or programming backgrounds, and we're all called business analysts.
Right. Yeah, no, like I have some colleagues that they didn't do IT or business, or they did completely something different, but they still work as an analyst. So yeah. So let's get to the next question, which will be more about what you learn. So yeah, what is basically your technical background? What tools and technologies have you learned so far?
So my background is really Excel, because I've had finance internships, and when you work at a bank, like Excel is your bread and butter. You do so much Excel.
Definitely.
But since coming to Deloitte, Excel is important, and I've done a lot of Excel, and I've grown on my Excel skills. But I've also learned a lot about Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
Very. So I thought it was just good for typing and making story, like writing, doing essays. But you can actually make a whole format, make it very presentable to the client, make it very client facing. But I've also developed my PowerPoint skills, and I spent a lot of time on PowerPoint, playing with like colors and how to make graphics and items like that. I've also learned Tableau, which is a data visualization tool where you have like large data sets and you try to make it appealing and easy to understand. But those are like kind of like the high level technical skills.
Yeah.
I expect it to everyone to know at the very least. As you get further in Deloitte and you decide to focus on a specific, on a specific client or skill, you kind of expect to learn, maybe get a cloud certification like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. I was looking into doing like robotic process automation through like UiPath and Automation Anywhere. And this is kind of like a task that is very repetitive, very easy. You can kind of get a bot to do by like programming or making it, or UiPath makes it very easy where you just like have a user interface and you kind of lay out the process to get the task done. And these are the more technical skills. But there's a lot of people within my space that are developing their like Python knowledge or Java knowledge to like be able to, well, for Python, like analyze large data sets. People learn R and SQL. And the company gives you a lot of resources to learn this, because a lot of these courses you have to pay for if you're doing it through like Udemy or LinkedIn Learning, but the firm was willing to pay for it. And if you want to get a certification on something, the firm was also willing to pay for that.
Awesome.
But within 1 year at the firm, I've learned a lot of Excel, really Microsoft Office and Tableau. But going forward, I plan on learning more unique or specific technical skill sets.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned, SQL and Python and R. Yeah, that's like data science route. Yeah, I mean, it's the same. There's not a lot of different doing I mean, it's all like pretty much same to me. Like when I look at business intelligence, business analyst, business analytics, data science, they all like overlap at one point in the end. And like, at the end, like you're basically analyzing stuff. You're using the same set of software systems, Tableau or SQL, SQL, Python with whatever you're using, they're pretty much like similar. So yeah, a lot of good advice, and I did not know. Yeah, exactly. It opens doors to a lot of opportunities, and yeah, like when I started my work, I knew programming because I was an IT major, right? I mean, I'm still an IT major. I'm graduating in December, so yeah, I knew some programming, but mainly I'm also using Excel, Word, PowerPoint, learning, Adobe XD because I'm trying to also work with the UI UX designers and designing wireframes for, applications and stuff like that. So yeah, like, we actually deal with so many different softwares today. I feel like any job role, like Excel and Word are probably the two primary softwares that I think everyone should actually know how to use. So yeah, that's something pretty important. So let's jump to our next question. I think this is pretty important. Like I feel like our viewers want to know how have you got to Deloitte? Have you worked in all the other firms that you mentioned? So what are some of the tips that you would give to our students who are watching this, or professionals who are watching this? Someone like me who's about to graduate and who's about to go for an entry level position.
Don't stop. Don't just continue to persevere. Like that's my biggest takeaway. And start as early as you can. I'm reading a book right now called The Defining Decade: Why Your 20s Matter. And like you have this, the earlier you start, the easier it will be in a year, 2 years, 3 years to get to where you want. Like I said, I mean, I knew from the very first week of my undergrad that I needed an internship my freshman year. And I didn't know what that was, and I was willing to do anything. And that led me to get an internship at Goldman Sachs my first semester of my sophomore year. Sorry?
I was like, that's pretty good. Goldman Sachs. Wish I could work there.
Yeah, and like honestly, you don't know where this is gonna go, but you just have to like bet on yourself that you will be successful. And I can't emphasize enough, like the earlier you start, the more how it's gonna pay off early. And on top of that, you have to have the confidence in yourself, but like continue to network. I can't emphasize enough like how important meeting people, getting to know people, and just getting comfortable speaking to strangers and asking for help, and just getting to know those companies, how much that helped me. Like I was very reserved, very shy, didn't want to talk to people when I was a freshman because I thought that people that were 5 years, 6 years into their career were like they're set for life, they had no issues. But at the end of the day, they're just people, and you don't realize that until you start talking to them and realizing that they have the same interests and needs as you. And so I can't emphasize enough, like just starting early, continue to persevere. You're gonna deal with rejection, but that builds character, personality, and it gives you time to reflect. If things come easy to you, then you won't try. Like there's no need to continue. You'll just peak. And I think with all the hardships and rejections, that will kind of craft you in wanting to be better or make you better. So yeah, that's the advice I'd give.
No, dude, you probably gave really good advice. Oh, just remember, everyone who's watching this, don't give up. If you're applying to 2 companies, don't stop doing that. Apply to 100 companies, right? You probably get interviews from at least 2 or 3. So, think big. If you want to work at a good firm, start applying to all the good firms that are in your domain. Apply to like 300 companies, and you'll probably hear back from at least like 10 to 20. Because it's really hard. And especially if you're a freshman and if you want to get an internship, you definitely got to have that attitude because you don't have a lot of skills on your resume to begin with. So yeah, make sure that you do internship or do something productive in your summertime so that you can put it on your resume. So let's go to next question. This is just something that I wanted to ask because I'm actually looking to join Deloitte, and like when I graduate, I'm actually gonna apply, and I hope that I get in. I want to know like how everything is from home, like how is work from home going for you?
Um, so I was actually working from home before COVID,
Hmm.
but I had the option of going into the office, and so I would take advantage of that when I had when I wanted to meet up with friends or there were like work events.
Right,
Um,
right.
since COVID happened, I came back home to New Jersey where my family is, and I've been living with them. Um, and right now, the firm said they will open the office in January, but that may be extended to
That's
like
good.
information. Um, but I think the firm is doing a good job in terms of trying to maintain firm culture and still give us benefits. I mean, they're giving us um, subsidies in order to like pay for work from home equipment, like a new monitor or a standing desk or something like that. They're
Yeah,
also giving us like money in case we like need a nanny to raise children for those that need children.
right.
So it's definitely an adjustment, but I think the firm is helping us. And with that being said, I do really miss going into the office. Like there were a
Yeah.
lot of like work happy hours or like dinners or just seeing other people. It's kind of hard to replicate that outside of the office, and so I am looking forward to the office reopening.
I look forward to it. When I started my jobs, it's been a month now since I started working as a business analyst. We had a happy hour yesterday. We had this whole we had a Zoom. We were just like drinking, and yeah, I miss that definitely. Like it would have been different in the office. I miss going to office. Like I feel you. So
Yeah.
now we're gonna wrap up the whole session of like us asking you questions. It's time for for you to engage with our audience. I'm pretty sure they have some questions for you. So let's get to the live Q&A and let Raynier take over. We'll answer some of the questions that you guys have. So we have a question which probably might be answered, but Raynier will once again try to answer it.
Um, how did you grab these internship opportunities? So, I mean, I think every internship was unique. My first internship at the garbage company, my uncle worked at the firm at the garbage company, and he just pushed in my resume. So that was through like a referral from someone I knew. And chances are that's probably how you'll get your first internship. It's probably like through your network or your immediate network. Um, that's how I got my first internship. The second one, so every company or most companies, they tend to have like a event where they show the aspiring students that want to work at that company kind of what the firm is like. Goldman Sachs had this undergraduate boot camp, which was a week-long program where they brought students from across the country into like their Jersey City office in New Jersey, and they tell them about like the different divisions. And when I was there, I learned about the firm and I was able to make connections to the firm. But also, I believe having that experience kind of put me on a separate um, trajectory, or they like flagged my name so that when I applied in the future, they'd already like um, they'd take me in for an interview, and that's how I got that Goldman Sachs internship. The Morgan Stanley one, I was involved with an extracurricular outside of school called Management Leadership for Tomorrow, and that organization also put my resume on a separate recruiting track or for Morgan Stanley. And so I think I got that interview because of like my association with that with MLT, the organization. For Discovery Channel, I got that internship through Indeed. I know Ricken mentioned Handshake, Indeed is somewhat like Handshake, and that's why I received that internship. With my full-time opportunity with Deloitte, that was also through another diversity program, Jumpstart. That put my resume in a separate recruiting track for Deloitte. Developer roles at Deloitte. So there are a lot of them, but I'm not too familiar with that because there's a lot of opportunities at the company, and you kind of get siloed within your area. I have friends that are in the developer roles, but I'm not too familiar with that. Sorry about that. Hi, Raynier. I was placed in Deloitte through campus placement and recruiting consulting department, and I haven't started yet. Since you are from the same department, can you give insight what to expect? Yeah, sure. So I think you're going to learn a lot. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into because I didn't do a consulting interview. I mean a consulting internship. But once I got there, I was placed in like a role where I was doing cloud computing, and I had no background, no knowledge of cloud computing. But I was put in a technical role where I had to explain what cloud computing was. And that put me in a position where I had to learn about new technology and know about an emerging market within consulting, and like an emerging target market for us. And that kind of like made me realize that there's other emerging markets out there. And I began learning about other things within the firm, and learning about other emerging technologies at the firm kind of like sparked my interest to learn about other things. And I was able to learn a lot about different areas of the firm, because when you realize that there's a lot of things that the firm is targeting, and you're going to be in a position where you can pick and choose what you want to target, what you want to focus on. So being around experts that have a lot more experience than you do in that field kind of positions you to learn from them. And so I think what you can expect from that is just a lot of learning opportunities, if that makes sense. I am a software developer. Can you suggest me some tips to become a business analyst? So my recommendation would be to go on LinkedIn and target other people that work at Deloitte that are software developers. That could be Java or really anything that your expertise in, and see what they do. And then just message them and ask, hey, can I get 5-10 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes to talk to you about your experience and what you do? And then get on the phone with them, and hopefully if the conversation goes well, or ask them to refer you to somebody else. So you develop a network within that community at the company. And then, if things go well, ask for a referral, and that can lead to your first interview and hopefully a job offer with that company that you choose. Hey, can you tell about the programs or challenges which Deloitte keeps for university students? Also, are the top performers offered full-time roles later? So I'm assuming what you mean is like internships, like the stuff that they have for internships. So Deloitte has a big internship program. They hire hundreds of interns every single year. And I haven't gone through the internship process, but from what I've heard about it, it's typically 10 weeks. This year was a little shorter because of COVID, but typically it's 10 weeks. And in that time, you are placed on a team. You're able to work and contribute, and learn skills and kind of get a sense of firm culture, what it's like to work there. A lot of internship activities where you can like meet other people. There's a lot of hangouts, but there's also a internship project where you kind of are given a unique situation and you're trying to solve it, working with a team, so people can see what kind of team member you are, and based off all those cumulative experiences on top of how you perform on your project, you are offered a full-time role. Tips for making your resume ATS compliant. Do you mind just explaining what ATS means?
Hey, yeah. So ATS means the applicant tracking system. So ATS is just basically a template for a resume, which helps. Often, all these big companies use tracking systems. They use AI to, go through their candidates. So these AI basically chooses the best candidates based on some of the keywords that are in their resume.
Yeah.
So that's called the ATS system. So it's all, basically done by the AI. So I think that's what she meant by ATS compliant. Like, what are some of the keywords that you could use on your resume, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the AI tracks, but I can tell you probably what are some good words to include. I think any programming experience, any language experience, if you try to quantify your successes or involvement on a project or past internship, I think that will only help. I think if your GPA is above a certain number, I'm sure that will help. And I think if you have any notable companies, that probably will help as well. But I think if you just demonstrate what you already know, have like some quantifiable metrics or successes, as well as having a good solid GPA, I think that will stand out to the algorithm that's looking for resumes. Hello, Raynier. I'm a database developer. Can you let me know what's the scope in the field in Deloitte? I know that's a big area within the firm. I just don't know too much about it. Like our clients, they are trying to migrate a lot of their current data into more of like a cloud computing area, or they're just trying to put it all on, migrate a lot of what they have onto technology. And so it is a growth area. I have talked to people within it, but it's kind of in a way siloed or in a bubble of their own community. And what I do is more like strategy and operations transformation, system engineering work. So I'm in a different area, but I do know it exists and it's big within the company. I'm sorry I can't be more helpful there. How does referral programs at Deloitte work? Does it make any difference in getting an interview? It does work. Yeah, so it does help. Without a doubt, it does help. But I think the people that have the most weight with the referral program are PPMD, senior managers, and managers, but also it's the recruiters. They're super important. And if you were to start networking, getting to know people, I think the people you should target would be managers, senior managers, PPMDs, and recruiters. They have the most weight, and they will. And if they push your resume through, it will be seen by the person picking out resumes. Also, one other thing is that if you have a specific skill that is high in demand, like Power BI or Tableau or AWS, that will stand out in your application, and the person that is referring you might need that skill on their project, and so that will definitely get you an interview, or at least go a long way to getting you an interview. How is academic background taken into consideration when trying to get the initial interview? What tests are required, scores, documents, like transcripts? So I think there's a minimum GPA to work at Deloitte, depending on your line of business that you're trying to get into. and it depends on everything. But also, I think if you have a good solid work experience, that the GPA might not matter as much. But in terms of scores and documents like transcripts, you do have to submit your transcript. Scores, GPA, like I said, that depends on what you're applying to. And there's no specific test to get into Deloitte, but it helps if you have passed some certification exams because it indicates that you have knowledge on maybe a hot in-demand skill. Like for me, right now I'm studying Tableau to get my Tableau certification because I know it would help me at my firm.
Hey guys, so I think we don't have any more questions right now from our viewers. I feel like you answered most of them. It was really helpful to our viewers, I believe. And as always, if you guys have any other questions, make sure to reach out to Raynier on his LinkedIn, or if you want to drop any of your socials, you could do that, Raynier. I think people would be happy to reach out to you if they have any more questions about this live Q&A. Oh, we probably got one more question. Actually, let me just add that. Hey, Raynier, can you see that question?
Yes. How to send out your resume for Deloitte? I think the best way to get your resume to stand out would probably be, and I wish I knew this before, but I think having certifications will demonstrate that you have a work ethic to learn, but also with the certification on a skill that Deloitte really wants and needs, that will more likely get you an interview. Because I know people that got hired based off a specific skill that they already acquired outside the firm. And like there's a consulting track, but there's also a specialist master track where people are specifically focused on developing a specific skill, and that is what they're known for, and that is a good way to make your resume stand out. On top of that, it's good if you have a referral from someone they refer your resume. I think that flags your resume to be more likely to get an interview. And again, I think you get that referral by networking, getting to know people at those companies. And for me, that was a big part of my success with interviewing in general, but also getting into Deloitte.
Hey guys, so if you have any more questions, make sure to reach out to Raynier on his LinkedIn profile. And if you have any questions for us, please go and follow Scholarship Track on LinkedIn, YouTube. Make sure to subscribe our channel, like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment down if you have any more suggestions for this video, if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that. For all of you who enjoyed this video, tune in to our channel and also follow and look out for our next video, next live Q&A that's going to be pretty soon. I believe it's tomorrow. So as always, guys, thank you for watching this video. Take care and stay safe. I'd like to thank you, Raynier, for being here today for this live Q&A. I believe he helped a lot of our viewers answer some really valuable questions and gave a lot of insights on how to get to Deloitte and also some of the other companies I worked at, which is pretty good. So thank you, Raynier. It was nice having you today on this live Q&A.
Yeah, thanks for having me.